Boruto is going to use his Jougan in the next couple of chapters, and genuinely, I'm kind of astounded I'm just figuring this out now. See, for the last couple of weeks, if not last couple of months actually, we've been talking about how if Boruto jumps to the battlefield using his flying Raijin, then Jura's gonna come out to play, and that's not gonna go well for Boruto. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Boruto used flying Raijin to jump onto the battlefield to slice and dice Matsuri and save Konohamaru's life. But not to be outdone, Jura also decided to pop onto the battlefield and begin his presumed death match with Boruto. And as it currently stands, Boruto has no way to win this fight and no way to escape it. I mean, sure, Boruto could use flying Raijin to head back to his hideout with Kashi and Koji, but then all of Team 7 2/3 and the Soul Thorns for both Ryu and Matsuri would be left to Jura. Tie that into the fact that Boruto has now hit Jura with 2 separate Rasengan, and neither have done any damage whatsoever, which is especially alarming when you consider the fact that one of those Rasengan was a Rasengan Uzuhiko, and Jura, because apparently his Bijou bombs are eerily similar to that of the Rasengan Uzuhiko, was simply able to undo the vertigo effect of Rasengan Uzuhiko, meaning that Boruto's trump card is now useless, really has no options left in his bag to eke out a victory against Jura by himself. And thus for weeks, even long before I saw that Rasengan Uzuhiko didn't work against Jura, I stated that the only way that Boruto was either going to be able to stalemate Jura or give himself enough space to be able to retreat from his battle against Jura is the accessing of his karma marking. But there's a problem with Boruto using his karma marking, and that problem, well, is the person who gave him that karma marking, Momoshiki. As it was established during the time skip, Boruto lost his ability to use the karma marking, as anytime the karma marking either willingly or unwillingly begins to unseal onto Boruto's arm, he feels as though Momoshiki is going to take over his body and never give it back. But if Boruto can no longer use the karma marking, how is he going to use it in this upcoming battle against Jura? Well, the community is split into 2 camps. One camp I've explained rather meticulously that Boruto is going to unleash his karma marking with hopes that he'll be able to wrestle back control of his body from Momoshiki after Momoshiki is done beating Jura to a pulp, either by himself or with the help of Shinki, and the other camp stating that now the stage has been set perfectly for Boruto to reveal his true eye, also known as the Jougan, and reveal that the true ability of the Jougan is to control the Otsutsuki. And today, I want to talk about that second, actually maybe more evidence-based argument. That argument that states that instead of Shinki busting out of a divine tree with a new power-up and using his iron sand to seal away Momoshiki until Boruto's able to reseed control of his body, that rather instead Boruto is simply going to reveal an ability we haven't seen him use since chapter 1. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today we got some big theorizing to do, because today we're talking the true powers of the Jougan revealed. But before we get to revealing anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're looking for one additional NC Hammer 23 video a week, you guys can go ahead and find my Naruto reaction series in the 4th wall link in my description below. We are on to the Chunin exams. Isn't it kind of crazy that we live in a world where you can get quite literally anything you could ever need directly delivered to your door? I think so, which is why we gotta talk about the sponsor of today's video, DoorDash. See, DoorDash is your door to more. Almost anything you could ever want or need can be delivered directly to your door through DoorDash. But DoorDash isn't just your door to flowers, groceries, and fresh produce. It's your door to taking back your time. It's your door to better relationships. It's your door to not missing a singular minute of the game you're watching. It's your door, at least in my case, for making a memory with all of your friends at a party. See, because as somebody who likes to be invited to things but doesn't like to stay for very long, my number 1 move at a party is to use DoorDash to order something that the party needs to the front door, be it more drinks, ice, pizza, anything. And when I walk in with gifts for the party, everyone goes, "Oh, Nick, you're the best." And then I slowly slink out the back door. And DoorDash wants to help you make memories just like that. So what are you guys waiting for? DoorDash is your door to more. Download the DoorDash app right now and get almost anything delivered. And by using code NCHammer50, get 50% off up to $10 of your first order of $15 or more. Limited time offer. DoorDash. It's about time life came to us. don't you think? So, in the Naruto universe, what happens when the Rasengan fail? What happens when the jutsu that you thought was your most powerful jutsu falls flat at the feet of your mortal enemy? Well, it's at that moment in time that you let the demon inside of you take over your body to give you a new level of strength that supposedly may make you equal with said mortal enemy. It's what happens when Sasuke's Chidori falls flat as he tries to attack Itachi. It's what happens in the first Valley of the End fight when Naruto uses his first one-tailed form of Kurama's chakra, and Sasuke uses the second version of his curse mark form. It's what happened when Naruto rages out in his battle against Nagato and unleashes almost the entirety of the power of the half of Kurama he had inside of him. And incredibly befitting of the son of that man, it's also what happens to Boruto whenever he's backed into a corner. Whether it's Momoshiki taking over his body in Team 7's battle against Boro, Momoshiki taking over Boruto's body in his battle against Code, or even maybe Momoshiki taking over Boruto's body in his battle against Jura. There are trends here. When an Uzumaki is painted into a corner, they bust out the demon button. And that is exactly the button that Boruto needs to hit, because he currently has no options to defeat Jura. Yes, there is a slight possibility that Boruto will be able to keep his feet on the floor long enough to charge up a Rasengan Uzuhiko that just blows Jura away. Because even though Jura is impervious to the vertigo aspect of it that makes you feel as though you're spinning until eventually you die, he's not impervious to the entire force of a spinning globe getting launched into his chest. But I don't really see a universe in which Jura gives Boruto enough time to pull that off. Especially when you consider the fact that in chapter 22, it's already been established that Boruto doesn't even have enough time to pull off a flying Raijin to get back to Kashin Koji. And thus it seems as though that it's only with the power of Boruto's karma that he will either gain enough power to make Jura retreat or give himself enough time to retreat himself. The only problem with that idea is that if Boruto uses his karma marking in this upcoming battle against Jura, there's a fair shot he won't be the person in the driver's seat. As it was established during the time skip that Boruto can no longer use his karma marking because when Sasuke and Boruto were fighting against Code and his Legion of Claw Grimes, when Boruto tried to access his karma marking, it felt as though Momoshiki was taking over his body and he was gonna die. Now, there are ways around this, most specifically the theory that I've been talking about for a couple of weeks that chapter 22 100% bolstered, which is that the only reason that we're in the Land of Wind right now is because Shinki needs to become more involved in the story as a Yamato-type role for Boruto. This is corroborated by the fact that Araya currently has Ryu's Soul Thorn and is running toward Shinki, and because Shinki was able to seal away Gaara so incredibly tightly that literally nobody outside of Ryu was able to break through it. Ties into the fact that Shinki may see some kind of upgrade by fusing with Ryu's Soul Thorn, and yeah, there stands a fairly good chance that Shinki is going to be involved in this battle between Boruto and Jura at some moment in the future. However, the more time I spend with this theory, the less likely it seems. See, if we do assume that Borushiki comes out to play, and Shinki is on the battlefield, and presumably Jura has retreated, and Shinki is able to seal away Borushiki, placing Boruto in some kind of similar stasis as to what Gaara's been in for the last couple of days, weeks, hours, we're not entirely sure. While this would definitely be a temporary pause on Boroshiki's rampage, we've seen from things like Gaara using his Grand Sand Mausoleum on Oroshiki, which, mind you, anime canon, that high-level Otsutskis do have the ability to break out of magnet release sealing jutsus. Now, once again, anime only, and this was an injured Gaara trying to use his Grand Sand Mausoleum, and he was able to hold Oroshiki for an hour or so, but still there is a fair to decent chance here that Shinki, even though he uses Iron Sand, which is stronger than Gaara's regular sand, may not be able to seal Borushiki forever. And even if he was able to seal Borushiki forever, and let's say somewhere down the line Boruto was able to re-cede control of his body from Momoshiki, how would Shinki know when Boruto had done that? And thus, while I do believe that Shinki is going to come out of his tree nap substantially more powerful, and that he's going to play a much larger role in Boruto moving forward, which is why we're in the Land of Wind right now to begin with, as to whether or not that's some kind of Yamato-esque addition to Team 7, or just as the future Kazekage of the Hidden Sand, I can't really say right now. But I do know we're going to be seeing a lot more of Shinki in the future. While there is absolutely a universe in which Shinki is able to seal Boruto away in some kind of monitorable way, to put Boruto in stasis until Boruto is able to retake control of his body, there is one aspect of Boruto's strength that I have been ignoring, and that's his Jougan. And Ikimoto might already be hinting at its reveal. See, at the beginning of every chapter of Boruto, and really at the beginning of most chapters from Shonen Jump, there is a full color art page. And in Boruto, that full color art page almost always displays one or sometimes two characters from Boruto and some iteration of a pose. Now, one would assume that that character on the front color page is Boruto all the time, but it's actually not. Boruto actually has not been on the front color page since chapter 13 of Two Blue Vortex, almost a year ago. And this color page of Boruto is really really interesting because a lot of things about it contradict what we know about Boruto's design. See, because on the first page of chapter 22 of Boruto, we see Boruto facing, I guess what you could call the camera, head on. And in this colored page, Boruto appears to be wearing a blue colored shirt. Now this is interesting because every single time we've seen Boruto in his two blue vortex form, in a colorized form, his shirt has not been blue, it's been white. I mean, on both the color page of chapter 1 and chapter 13, Boruto's undershirt is white. And we assume this is because Sasuke in his Boruto form wears a white undershirt. But for some reason in the chapter 22 color page, his shirt is blue. Blue like his eyes and the title of this manga. But the drawing of our attention to the concept of Boruto's blue eyes does not stop with Boruto's blue shirt. See, because the backgrounds of the full color pages are actually usually hints about the abilities of the person being shown on said page. See, when Kashin Koji was a subject of a full color page, in the background behind him, you could see reels of film. In the background behind Ryu, when he was the subject of a full color page, you could see his black iron sand. When Sarada was the subject of the full color page in chapter 21, the last chapter, a black hole was shown above her that seemed to be sucking in black mass around it. And thus, these full color art pages, while they are sometimes nothing, oftentimes serve as hints to what's coming either in this chapter or the chapters to come. And rather interestingly, in the background of this full color page, not only did Ikimoto use the primary colors found in the Jougan, light blue and white, but he also very purposely had those streaks of light blue and white heading out from a center point, like the coloration of an iris, with Boruto being the center of that iris. And thus it seems as though through the combination of changing Boruto's shirt color and by very purposely trying to draw our attention to some eye-based symbolism with the colors of the Jougan, Ikimoto seems to be hinting at the Jougan being revealed in upcoming chapters. But why now? Why hint at the Jougan right now in chapter 22? Well, it's important to note that in the Boruto manga, we've only ever seen the Jougan used once, and that was in chapter 1. And in that chapter, the Jougan was being used with the karma marking, because as Boruto stands countered to Kawaki on the destroyed stone faces of Konoha, as the karma marking grows across his body, he also opens his right eye, revealing the Jougan. And while a lot of us, me very much included, have been looking at this moment and saying, hey, look, Boruto gets access to the karma marking back, something we've been ignoring is that while he, yes, gets access to the karma marking back, he also learns how to use the Jougan willingly. See, because while we've only ever seen the Jougan used once in the manga, we have seen it used multiple times unwillingly in the anime. And in the anime, it's shown some pretty insane abilities, like the ability to track chakra and see tenketsu points like the Byakugan, the ability to predict intent like the Sharingan, and the ability to see where Yamatsu Hirasaka is going to be used and see the boundary between dimensions like the Rinnegan. And thus it appears that the Jougan has the core of all of the abilities of every dojutsu ever. And when you consider the relationship between Shinjutsu and Ninjutsu, as Shinjutsu has been stated to be the progenitor of literally all ninjutsu in existence, the idea that the Otsutsuki have access to a dojutsu that is the progenitor of all other dojutsu is not that crazy of an idea. I mean, after all, it is referred to as the true eye. And considering the fact that Otsutsuki don't just simply have access to Shinjutsu, that's something they need to work their way towards, and the Jougan has been established as the literal paragon of achievement for all Otsutsuki, literally turning them into gods once they awaken enough of them, the idea that Boruto was somehow born with an endgame ability is not that crazy. And we know, because of chapter 1, that Boruto gains access to it willingly at some point in time, even though that eye has currently been slashed. But here's the thing about Boruto's right eye being lost. See, immediately after Boruto saves Sarada from Kawaki's blade arm slash, losing, supposedly, his right eye, immediately after that moment, Momoshiki takes over Boruto's body and opens that slashed right eye, with which we can see Momoshiki's Byakugan. Now, if Boruto's eye was destroyed, there's still obviously the possibility that Momoshiki would still be able to manifest his Byakugan, but this seems to imply that even though Boruto's eyelid was slashed, that the eye is fine. Now, this moment was very important for Momoshiki because Momoshiki took over Boruto's body in this moment so that he could free Kawaki, so Kawaki could launch Omnipotence. Though, in this moment, nobody knew what Momoshiki was trying to accomplish. I mean, even Kawaki was baffled. Momoshiki literally had to tell him, go get! Telling him, I know you want to kill me, but you can't kill me if you're locked up in Konoha, can you? Now, this, amongst the myriad of other times that Momoshiki has apparently been able to see the future, all but seems to confirm that Momoshiki has the 10 paths. And mind you, I'm talking about all this chapters for a reason. Because in those last 3 or so chapters of part 1 of Boruto, let's say chapters 77 to 80, Momoshiki is almost constantly talking about how things are either going exactly as he predicted or not going as he saw. In fact, when Boruto is slashed in his right eye, Momoshiki says, "You've now lost one of those blue eyes." But that is just the beginning of so much more loss to come. And Momoshiki in this moment saying that Boruto has lost one of those blue eyes seems like, to me at least, a rather obvious callback to when Momoshiki told Boruto, "One day those blue eyes will take everything from you." Now, this is one of the most hotly debated lines in the entirety of the Boruto community. What is Momoshiki referring to? Is he referring to Boruto's Jougan? Is he referring to the eyes of Himawari or Naruto? Is he referring to Boruto's base blue eyes? But with Momoshiki making an obvious callback to what he said previously about those blue eyes, in this moment referring to Boruto's blue eye that he just lost as one of those blue eyes, it seems fairly obvious to me that Momoshiki was talking about Boruto's eyes and how Boruto's eyes would lead to the loss of everything. But what does that even mean? Well, I believe that Boruto's blue eyes were actually an allusion to his connection to Konoha. See, Boruto's blue eyes are actually talked about rather commonly in the lead up to him getting slashed in his right eye. With people like Sarada saying that Boruto's eyes seem to be even bluer than his father's, and constant connections being drawn between Naruto and Boruto through their eyes, it doesn't seem like a crazy leap to make that Boruto's blue eyes, which are a sign of his connection to his father, his connection to Sarada, his connection to Konoha, his connection to the Uzumaki, his connection to his grandfather Minato, who had blue eyes, are the symbol of Boruto's life, friends, and connections. And Boruto's eyes being a symbol for his connections make a lot more sense as a theory when you consider the fact that Momoshiki believes that those blue eyes, or his connections to Konoha and his friends, will be his undoing. Because it's 1, Momoshiki who makes omnipotence happen by freeing Kawaki, and 2, Momoshiki who vehemently believes that when Boruto has his positions swapped with Kawaki, that he'll give into the despair of losing all of his loved ones and friends, go to sleep forever, and allow for Momoshiki to pilot his body, and thus eat the globe in a tyrannical rampage. But this is also why Momoshiki flew into such a rage when Boruto didn't crumple under the pressure of losing all of his loved ones. See, because Momoshiki saw Boruto's future. He saw the firing of omnipotence. He saw Boruto giving into the agony of losing everybody he loved. He saw himself taking over Boruto's body forever and fully expressing his karma marking, consuming the planet, and finally being able to leave Earth. And this is why in chapter 80, Momoshiki gets so animated as he tries to push Boruto down into this avenue of depression. Boruto is actively diverting from the 10 paths course that Momoshiki had seen for him. And I believe Boruto's ability to divert from the predictions of the 10 paths lies in his Jougan. And thus Boruto's Jougan was not destroyed when his right eye was slashed. Yes, maybe one of his base eyes, his blue eyes, was destroyed, but we know from chapter 1 that his Jougan makes a triumphant return. And thus, what if in actuality, when the Jougan does make its triumphant return, it's revealed that its true ability is to control the Otsutsuki? See, every Otsutsuki that's ever heard that Boruto had access to the Jougan found that to be incredibly problematic. But why? Many have speculated for years that the Jougan has some kind of power over the Otsutsuki, but what is that power? Well, let's think about who amongst the Otsutsuki is able to accomplish the awakening of a Jougan, and why every Otsutsuki possibly wants to awake one in the first place. See, we've seen that even the weakest amongst the Otsutsuki, people like Shinki, who have possibly never consumed a chakra fruit, are still leagues stronger than some of the strongest beings from the races that they destroy for energy. Shinki was able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Sasuke, and while he probably couldn't have beaten Sasuke in a one-on-one fight, humans are probably the strongest species in the entire universe outside of the Otsutsukis. And that's mostly to do with the fact that humans were created from the Otsutskis. So if the Otsutskis are already leaps and bounds stronger than all of the races that they need to conquer, why be in the constant pursuit of more power? Well, Nick, they want to climb the social ladder amongst themselves, and yeah, that's a pretty fair explanation. But if the goal of all of the Otsutsuki is to become an Otsutsuki god by acquiring the Jougan must serve some purpose and making yourself more powerful than other Otsutsuki. Some power outside of the purview of something like a Rinne Sharingan, a Byakugan, a regular Rinnegan, or even a Sharingan. And I believe that power lies in the ability to control the Otsutsuki. It's already been established that omnipotence mind wipes don't work on the Otsutsuki. This is why Boruto, Kawaki, Momoshiki, Ada, Daemon are all not necessarily affected by omnipotence because of their tie to the Otsutsuki. And thus, if even the highest level of Shinjutsu, the literal programming language for the Naruto universe, is not enough to affect the Otsutsuki, what if the Jougan is? See, when you're already more powerful than all of the people you're conquering, the only people you have to compete with are the other conquerors. And thus it makes sense that those who gain access to the Jougan are referred to as the god of the Otsutsukis, given their own dimension, reveled as far beyond the regular Otsutsuki in terms of power. And that's because the Otsutsuki truly only see the gods amongst them as those capable to wipe them out of existence, to subjugate them either into slavery or turn them into food like they do every other race in the universes. And thus, I believe in the coming chapters, Boruto will reveal an eye that acts as a counter to Sarada's Sun Eye, as not only is her ability named after the goddess of the sun, Amaterasu, but also the design of her Mangekyo Sharingan is that of a sun. And to counter that sun design, Boruto will unlock a Moon Eye, an eye eerily reminiscent of the moon in shape and color, which will allow for him to access his karma marking. See, because if Boruto's able to control the power of the Jougan, which may be able to allow him to control the Otsutsuki, in the same way that the Sharingan allowed for the Uchiha to control the tailed beast, and the Rinnegan allowed for Rinnegan users to control the Geto statue and the Ten Tails, Boruto will be able to unlock the power of his karma marking without worrying about Momoshiki taking over his body, because Momoshiki will be in check. But Nick, if this is a possibility, why didn't Kashin Koji see it coming? Well, there's a fair to decent possibility that our iteration of Boruto lies outside of the purview of the Ten Paths. Not only has Kashin Koji stated that this timeline is walking an incredibly thin tightrope, avoiding destruction on both sides, but Boruto has actively broken out of the prediction of the Ten Paths, at least if we're assuming that Momoshiki has used the Ten Paths to predict Boruto's future, breaking into a timeline that Momoshiki did not see coming with his future sight ability. And thus I believe, while Momoshiki may believe it's his time to shine when the karma marking begins creeping up Boruto's arm, as Boruto begins to lose control, his Jougan will be revealed for the first time in the manga since chapter 1 of part 1. And through the combined power of the Jougan and the karma marking, Boruto will find enough time and power to be able to retreat from his battle against Jura. No, I don't think this is going to be enough power for him to defeat Jura one-on-one, and I don't think that would be a fun story beat either. Kawaki needs to be involved, and Kawaki will be involved. And thus I believe that after Boruto unlocks his karma marking and unlocks his Jougan in this upcoming supposedly death battle with Jura, he'll be able to get away from the battlefields with the soul thorns of Ryo and Matsuri in Team 7 in 2/3, giving them all the time and space they need to train for their upcoming battles. But what do I know? Maybe the Boruto and Kawaki we saw at the beginning of chapter 1 were in an alternate timeline, and he actually never gets access to his karma marking or his Jougan ever again. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Boruto gets access to his Jougan in the upcoming chapters? If you do, tell me about it in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, I get the Ada's Senrigan is kind of a moon eye, and that's kind of the counter to Sarada's Sun MS. Maybe, I don't know, it's like a universe eye?